Welcome to episode 29 of the 24-Hour Hustle Show, and today we got special guest, Executive Director of Hammond's Initiative, Leonard Hammonds II. Welcome to the 24-Hour Hustle Show. I'm your host, Anthony Freeze, and this is the show where we sit down with incredible guests and find out all about their 24 hours and how they're maximizing on their time. And we have the honor and privilege of having you on the show because you do a lot of community work in the Pittsburgh area. You're doing a lot of things for the youth, and just overall, you're doing amazing work. You've been featured in the newspaper and been on, television, and just the work that you're doing and the response is definitely resonating with people in the community. So I definitely want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing, and thank you for being on the show. It is definitely an honor and a privilege. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on the show. To God be the glory. Mm-hmm. I said I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be on the show.
Absolutely. So when we got a chance to connect over a cup of coffee before, love the conversation. I mean, the chemistry was going through the roof.
Absolutely.
I love having those kind of conversations, just getting together with like-minded people. So I'm definitely glad to get into this conversation. So for people who don't know who you are yet, this would be a great opportunity for them to find out who you are. Just tell us your background and all the things that you do, and maybe even some of the things that have inspired you to get to where you are today.
Well, once again, thanks for allowing me to be on the show. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Swissvale, in between Swissvale and Penn Hills. I grew up dealing with a lot of different obstacles when I was younger. I dealt with bullying and things of that nature. So growing up, I had some trouble issues when I was younger. So they always say that your misery is your ministry. Mm-hmm. So as I came up, I thought about it. How could I be impactful with the youth myself? So as I got older, I got into the martial arts. I ended up going into the military, spent 8 years in the Marines. And once I got out of the Marines, I said, I definitely wanted to, once again, find ways to impact my community and also help the youth with self-development, help them with empowerment, give them the courage that they need, because bullying was something that was never going to go away. So here was this kid who started out as a bullied child, who grew up to be a Marine. Mm-hmm. So, and with that confidence and with the things that were instilled in me in the Marine Corps, I wanted to go out in the community and put a little bit of that into the youth. Mm-hmm. So, dealing with that, me being out in the community, I had suffered a tragedy with my cousin Riyadh. He was murdered in Braddock, and that put me on a path to where I came into ministry, and I actually became an ordained minister during that time. Mm-hmm. Because during that time, I really had to dig deep within myself to find out what was my purpose. Not is it just to serve the youth, or is it to serve the youth in the community and work towards just complete peace? Because when you're dealing with bullying, you're dealing with a certain level of violence. But when you're dealing with gun violence, there's no coming back from that once somebody's life is taken. So I wanted to come out and be instrumental with bringing peace to the community, stopping bullying, stopping the violence, and from there, birthed Hammond's Initiative. And now you have a person who is dedicated to walking in my purpose, to creating stronger and safer environments for our youth and communities, and ministering the gospel, and just really being impactful wherever I'm needed. If a person calls me and say, look, I need food on my table, then it's my job to do what I can do to share my resources to get out there to help those individuals. Or if someone needs mentoring from whatever it is from A to Z, if it's within my power to help, it's my duty to do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and your resume is getting quite long, and it is impressive. It's just amazing, just all the different things that you're doing. So tell us and take us through your story a little bit of maybe some of the things that inspired you or what influenced you, and just your upbringing, because those things definitely highly impact how our mindset is developed. So, take us through, a little bit of your upbringing and your story of how you got to, to the point where you wanted to actually start Hammond's Initiative.
Well, I definitely say having my parents and my grandparents together, I said it was a beautiful thing to have two groups of individuals involved in my upbringing, because I learned different things from each group. My father was a person that would pretty much taught me, put your head down and just press forward. And then my grandfather was from the South, and he had overcame all kind of obstacles and came up here from Georgia. So he showed me a different kind of leadership where you have to jump out there. It's not about keeping your head down so much. It's about getting out there, finding what it is that you want to do and putting your all into it. And then my grandmother told me, in this world, you got to have faith. So when you sit there and you put that perseverance and that consistency with faith, there's nothing that can stop you. So with those things that were instilled in me, I got out into the community and I began to meet different people like Lee Davis, who was
he's a good brother.
Oh, real good brother.
Yeah.
And he's like a big brother to me, who at that time I was a recording artist. So he had mentored me. I performed for everybody. I was able to end up meeting Sean Puffy Combs and doing a lot of great things within the music. So me growing up not having an older brother, he was able to instill a lot of things in me and help groom me so that I could go ahead. And that's where you see that person who's working on branding and the person that's out in the community who's able to do public speaking and things like that. Those are things that were all contributed to Lee Davis working with me at an early age. So with all these different people that were instrumental in my life, it allowed me to get out in the community and be able to talk to people and shake hands and network and do a lot of different things that allowed me to become the person I am today.
And how did you connect with Lee Davis?
Believe it or not, a long time ago, before Lee Davis was the entrepreneur extraordinaire that he is today, he used to work at Mogear at that time. And with me being a young recording artist at that time, everybody said, listen, if you want to do something in music, you have to see Feats, because that's his nickname. You have to go see Feats.
Okay.
So we went downtown, and at that time, it's like we were starstruck because, he had all the latest clothes. And I don't see, you're young, but people that are my age, I'm 41.
Right.
We remember when Coogee was the thing. And Lee Davis had every kind of Coogee sweater that you could think of, long dreadlocks. So I walk in there, and you're like starstruck because you're like, you finally get to meet this guy.
Yeah.
So I walk in, and I'm telling him who I am, and I'm performing for him. And he was just like, yeah, you got it. You got this talent. And he told me he was going to help me. And the next thing I know, I'm in rotation on Whammo, and there were just so many doors that opened up for me. So it was just one of those things, it just goes to show you there's so much talent in Pittsburgh, and there's so many hidden gems. And once we connect with those individuals, you never know what course your life's going to go.
Absolutely. That's where the magic happens, when you start to collaborate with other like-minded people.
Absolutely.
I mean, and like I said, I love doing this show because I get to connect with people like you. Like, none of this would have been able to be possible without doing the show and collaborating with people like you and somebody saying, oh, man, you should connect with that person. You should connect with that person. And it's just been a phenomenal experience. And that's a lot of ways how people can, start to, have a lot more success as well. Absolutely. And be able to impact the community a lot more. So just hearing that story definitely makes me feel good. And also a lot of other people should feel good about that too, because they have that same opportunity. So, take us through starting, Hammond's Initiative. What is Hammond's Initiative for people who don't know? What's all the things that you do in that organization?
Well, Hammond's Initiative is a nonprofit organization where we pair veteran mentors with the youth. And we also go out within the community and do things to create safer and stronger communities for our youth and for our communities. And we focus on 4 different pillars, which is violence intervention prevention, mentoring, community service, and community outreach.
Well, that's awesome. For somebody that may be looking to start up a nonprofit, what were some of maybe the challenges that you say you maybe faced in the beginning phases on getting that up off the ground?
One thing that I would tell anyone who wants to get involved in nonprofit, make sure it's something that you are called to do. It can't be something that you're just inspired to do. Because once you get out there and you're doing things for the community, a lot of people think once you get into a nonprofit, there's going to be guaranteed monies, there's going to be grants, or there's going to be all these different things. They're going to have a set amount of money in place, and then you'll come in and be able to operate with those funds. The truth of the matter is you're going to operate with whatever you have in the beginning. So if you have $2,000 to your name, that's what you have to work with. If you have just a crisp 20 fresh out the ATM in your pocket, that's what you have to operate with.
Right.
So I tell people, if this is something that you're passionate about and you want to get out there and you want to make a difference in the community, make sure that you can have a diet of ramen noodles and canned goods and perishable items,
right?
Because there's sacrifice involved with this if this is your purpose. And I can tell you with Hammond's initiative, I tell people it's a sacrifice. You definitely have to get out there and do what's needed, and you have to get out in the community and start the work. A lot of people, when you start a business, you have a 5-year plan and you have all these different things. When you want to make a difference in the community, you have to hit the ground running. And if you have to reinvent yourself as you go, don't be afraid to reinvent yourself, and don't be afraid of failure, because failure ultimately is where your success begins, because you have to learn from your mistakes, and then you constantly better yourself as you go. So anybody who wants to get involved with nonprofit work, I would say pray on it, meditate, and then pray on it again.
You got to do it a little bit more.
Exactly. Make sure that's what you're called to do.
So yeah, let's talk about finding your passion a little bit more, because that's the biggest challenge for most people, finding that passion and finding their niche and actually going after it. How were you able to find that niche? Because based off what I've heard and some of the things that I've seen you doing, you've definitely found your avenue and you're doing amazing work at it. How did you get to that point when you actually found it, and how would you say other people can start to find that passion for themselves and actually start doing it?
Well, first of all, I wasn't afraid to reinvent myself. I started out as a very shy child. I was bullied, and then I had to recreate myself. I said, I can't stay in this place that I'm at right now. So then I slowly came into a place to where I came out of my shell. I got involved in the martial arts. When I got involved in the martial arts, I had a certain level of confidence within myself. But I said, I can't stay in that place. So once again, I evolved. So as I evolved, I said, well, what is it that I can do to put myself in the spotlight? I'm tired of being that person who was ignored in the background. And once I met this guy named Joe Middlebrook, who was a recording artist at that time, and I had admired him, and he had told me, he says, well, listen, this is something that you could do. He said, I'll write something, and let me see you write something. So I began to write music. And the more and more I practiced, the better that I got. So I went from this shy kid who was bullying to a person who's involved in music, to meeting Lee Davis and becoming a recording artist and going and doing shows in front of 850 people, being on Whammo, doing things like that, and then moving from that person to being able to go into the Marines. So you can see throughout my life, it was always about reinventing myself, bettering myself. How could I be more effective? And then after the Marine Corps, I got to a place to where when I was in the Marines, there were different things that you could do in boot camp. You could be guys and things like that. And I was chosen to be a lay reader, which is pretty much like a platoon preacher. Never in a million years would I ever consider myself a person who would come into the ministry. I was a person that was involved in the streets as far as with regards to hustling and things like that. So ministry was never something that was on my radar. But we know that God already knows what our purpose is, and we just have to fall in line at that destined time. So once I went into the military, it opened up my eyes to see things from a ministry standpoint. And then once I got out the military, you run back into the real world, so to say. And there's all these things, all these doors are opened up for you. So you kind of stray away from some of the things that you did in the military, or some of the things that you learned in boot camp. And it was during that time that my first cousin, Riyad Partlow, was murdered. And I had a pivotal point in my life. A part of me wanted to retaliate because someone had taken the life of someone who was like a brother to me, like a little brother to me. And I had family members coming to me because now you have an individual who is angered and to the point that he feels he needs to retaliate, but he also is a Marine. So the first thing they're thinking is, okay, first and foremost, you need to pray, you need to calm down, and you have to think, what are you going to do from this day forward? Because you could do something foolish and you could end up in prison for the rest of your life. Or you could sit there and put it in God's hands and allow him to pretty much map out your destiny. And that's when I prayed and God spoke to me and I came into the ministry. And from there, the rest has been history. I've become the person you see today. And I haven't strayed from that purpose. And that showed me there, if you can't feed off anything that's positive, you got to feed off the pain. I didn't have anything positive going on in my life when my cousin was murdered, so I had to feed off the pain. And I tell people, that's what it's all about. It's about walking in your purpose. And walking in your purpose is not always a comfortable thing, but it's something that is so meaningful. And it, not only will it affect you, but it'll affect countless others if you truly do what it is that you're purposed to do.
Absolutely. And what you just said, if you can't find positivity positive things or have a positive mindset about things. I always believe in, even if you are going through a struggle or have a challenge or an adversity, I'm a firm believer in whatever challenge or adversity that may be, there is a seed of an equal or greater benefit in that challenge
Absolutely.
or in that struggle or in that adversity, because something's good has got to come out of it. And I think a lot of good things can come out of it if you are able to just flip the switch in your mindset that there's got to be a purpose for this.
Absolutely.
And once you do find that purpose for it, and then you actually start to act on that purpose, is when things can actually start to happen. And that's what it sounds like it's happened for you. I mean, you've totally flipped the script and made it like amazing. Like I just love it, and it's a great example to be able to not only be shown here but in the community, and just to hear that story of how you changed and how you turned things around. It gives a lot of other people hope and inspiration to maybe feel like they can do it too. They say, they see you do it and they think to themselves, hey, if he can do it, I could do it too.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. So how long has Hammond's Initiative been around?
Believe it or not, Hammond's Initiative has only been around for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
2 years.
Okay.
But it shows you how God can move things at only God's speed when you're walking in your purpose. Because there's a lot of people that say, I've been toiling at something for 25 or 30 years to get to a certain point. And then you have to ask yourself, or are you doing the things that you were called to do? Because you're a great host. And the gentleman here, he's a great photographer. But if right now, if I said I want to be a great host, I wouldn't be the great host that you are, because that's not something that I'm called to do. And I wouldn't be able to perfect it. So it would take me longer to do what it is that you would do. Right. It would take me longer to become a photographer because I don't know the different things that I'm working with. So I need time to learn not only my craft, but to learn the equipment. So when it came into the nonprofit world, I didn't know all the business side of things when it came to the nonprofit. But I knew that I had a purpose to help people. So I was no stranger to helping people. So I was a person that had already worked the fields before I even attempted to build the house. So that's why I believe that I was able to be impactful in such a short amount of time.
What are some other things that you feel like is definitely speeded up the process, or what is like some of the best, information or knowledge that you have gotten in that 2-year time span? What would you say is like the best, information or knowledge that you got in that 2 years so far?
The best knowledge is to make sure that you are investing your time wisely, because this is something that you could get burned out quite easily. So when you talk about a 24 hustle, and that's what it is. Yeah. It's a 24-hour hustle. Yeah. You are constantly doing something, and you have to make sure that you break those 24 hours down into like 3 different levels. So you want to have time for rest. You want to have time for vacation. You want to have time for work. So I look at it when Hammond's Initiative, now I've gotten to a place to where I set up, okay, I'm going to put 8 hours in for this. I'm going to put 8 hours in for something else, and then I'm going to put 8 hours in for rest. Because, I found myself constantly getting sick, constantly going to the hospital and things like that. And I said, well, why is it? If you're constantly in contact with sick people, chances are you're going to get sick. If you're not eating properly, if you're not doing proper exercise and things like that, you continue to hurt yourself, and you end up burning yourself out. So self-care is very important. Is something that I've learned, that if you're going to do this line of work, if you're going to be out into the community, and also making sure that you spend your time with the right people, because a lot of times people just jump out there and they try to associate and connect themselves with just everybody and anybody, and that's not what you want to do. You definitely want to, as the Bible says, connect yourself with wise counsel. You want to be around people that you can learn from. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to go into another room.
Exactly. Let's talk about that, because that's something a lot of people don't necessarily do, or they're afraid to cut off maybe people that are toxic in their relationship, or or people that are not trying to better themselves, or the people around them aren't trying to better themselves. So that also influences them highly as well. So how have you been able to navigate in your networking and connected with so many great people, and how have you been able to develop those relationships and add value to other people so that they've been able to add value to you?
Well, the biggest thing with me is a lot of times people are afraid to cut people off. And what I do is I really don't cut people off. people always say, well, I have a certain amount of people in my circle. I look at it, if you look at a target, you have all these different circles, and then you finally get to a point to where you have your bullseye. Mm-hmm. Your bullseye is your ultimate target, and that's in the center. That's your inner circle. I have associates that are on the outer stretch of a circle. And then as it comes in closer, you have the people that you know that you can count on, that you could be your true self with. Because a lot of times you go out in the community, you can't be yourself with just everybody and anybody because there's judgment. And then there's also people that will look to use things against you. And for a person such as myself that looks to pursue political endeavors in the future, everything that you do is under a microscope. So you really just have to really be cautious of who you have in your inner circle. And then when you're doing things like that, you look at other people who are where you want to be. So when I look at you and I look at all your different talents, and then I look at somebody like a Jimmy Fallon, I always say that I could see you in the future with your band.
I have my roots band.
You can have all those things. So if I was you, I would look at, okay, who could I associate myself with who's doing the things that I'm doing, but maybe on a bigger level? With me, I look at people that inspire me, like Jake Wheatley, who's a Marine, who's also the state representative.
We'd love to get him on the show, by the way.
great guy, great Marine. Yeah. So I look at people like that, that I look up to, and I spend time with and try to pick their brain. State Representative Ed Gainey, people like that. Lee Davis, who is a branding genius. My brother, Devin Hammonds, who I'm blessed that that's my younger brother that has promotional push. There's so many people that I look around and I see that are so intelligent. Harry Johnson II would be me. Julius Boatwright. There's a lot of people out there that are, just pure genius that you have to look at and say, these are people that I want to talk to, that I want to build relationships with, because ultimately those are individuals that will better you, and then what you have to bring to the table, you'll be able to better them as well. So that's what it's all about. It's about iron sharpening iron, and that's another beautiful thing. Cornell Jones, who's a big brother to me, who is very important in my life, is another person that's in my inner circle that continues to better me and allow me to expand my growth. So it's always about finding different people who could help you grow, because it's all about growth. Who wants to remain stagnant?
Right, absolutely. I loved everything that you just said, because one of the things about doing this show, I don't claim to know everything, and I'm always learning new things. And what you just said as far as like the bullseye thing and not necessarily cutting people off, that's really good insight. And just kind of looking at it that way. I'm using that from now on.
That's how you look at things.
Yeah, I learned things even as we're doing the show. Like, this was a real genuine moment where you literally just changed my mindset. I just really love that. So as far as the future and where you see yourself with Hammond's initiative going, what are like some of I know there's some things we can't talk about right now, but what are some of the things that you're looking for it to go, or what would you like to have happen, and what are some of the big goals that you see for it in maybe the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, I would say first and foremost, before I get into 2 to 5 years, I would say immediately what I would like to see for the summer is we're going to have different programming, really around violence intervention, prevention, because, there's so many things that are going on in the community with regards to gun violence. I want to continue to take some of the youth to Harrisburg so they can rally around different issues pertaining to gun violence within our community. And I also want to launch a program called Every Second Matters, which is going to be something to help with gunshot victims, to teach people how to be pretty much a triage, where they'll be able to learn how to tie tourniquets and things like that, because there's so many people that are shot within the community that are bleeding out, that we could train people in the community to assist those individuals to where we could save lives, because every second truly does matter. And then we also want to create these conversations led by the youth where they could talk about gun violence, and we could have gun violence survivors there we could also link that with our military counterparts, with people who were wounded in the military, so they could talk about their experiences, so we could show the commonality between veterans and show that the people in the community, as well as people who serve, are dealing with post-traumatic stress. And we call it post, but it's never post because it's something that we're continuously dealing with. So, and then along with mentoring young men and young women on self-development and things like that. Those are the things that Hammond's Initiative will be doing throughout this summer. But moving into the future, what I really would like to do is to take some of this youth leadership that I have and put them in a place to where I could find someone who I could bring on and have them be the executive director, because the goal of Hammond's Initiative is to always have the youth voice heard and to be able to create stronger youth and stronger communities. So the overall goal is to find somebody to be in a position who has the purpose and the passion to better their communities. And ultimately from that, my position is to continue to walk in my purpose and find myself in a place to where I could affect change politically. And I definitely believe that Hammond's Initiative is a stepping stone for the community to be strengthened, but also for me to be able to go to a higher level and help more people in Pennsylvania to become greater.
That's awesome. Have you, I don't know if you have before, but have you ever written a book?
I'm working on the book
currently. I was gonna say that feels like definitely in your path.
Yeah, I'm working on a book right now, and it's going to be entitled "From Stereotype to Prototype."
Nice. So, and what inspired that, and how did you come up with that concept? That's a great title too, by the way.
Well, I'm looking at the things that I've overcame in my life. Just my birth was something that people thought was impossible. My mother was told at an early age that she was barren and she would never be able to produce a child. And lo and behold, here I am. And the different things that I went to. How many people that you know are ex-offenders, former drug dealer who's an honorably discharged Marine, who sits on various boards, who became executive director, who's a mentor, who's a father, who's a husband, all these different things, because people will look at some of our youth and they'll think to themselves that, okay, this kid's out here on the corner right now, they selling weed or selling drugs or whatever they're doing, they got their pants sagging, and people would just immediately write them off. That could be the future president of the United States. And that's what I want to tell people. I was that stereotype. I was a gangbanger, the whole 9 yards. I was out there, with my blue rags and braids. Yeah, and picture me with long hair, but long ago. So I look at this person who was the stereotype. I was the rapper. I was the guy who was, I was a follower at one point in my life. And now I'm a leader. So that's where you get from stereotype to prototype. You see me moving from a follower to a leader. So that's what it's really about, inspiring the next individual and letting people know that there are times where you are to follow, but only positive leadership. And I found myself at an early age following a lot of negative leadership, and I had to deal with the consequences. And that's one of the things that I really want the youth to understand is consequences are real. So, I don't want them to bump their head. I want them to learn from borrowed experience. I bump my head for everybody. That's what I tell the kids. So let me teach you how to walk the right path, and let me teach you how to walk in your purpose by first establishing and helping you identify what your purpose truly is.
That's awesome. And that sounds like it'll be an amazing read. You have any ideas on when that plans on coming out? Because based off what you just said, that definitely sounds like something I want to read, and a lot of people should read, because people do have these different stereotypes that they look at and they feel like they could just write them off. But you are a prime example of somebody that was able to flip the script. So when will that come out?
Well, right now we're shooting for August. Right now we're shooting for
August of this year.
This year.
Nice. Yes. Okay.
So we're just working on tying up some loose ends. I just want to make sure that once I put it in place, that it's going to take off the way that I'm praying that it will be able to take off. So you want to take your time and do things right. I don't want to rush it and it comes out and it's a flop. So I want to make sure that I share my story and make sure that there's an interest first and foremost that this is something that people will want to purchase and truly read.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely an interest. I mean, like I said, I think it'll be a great read, and I feel like a lot of people will get a good read out of it as well. So just in getting closer to wrapping up, if there was something that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you feel like you may want to talk about that may be on your heart or on your mind, or any topic at all, or something that you want to promote or anything at all, right now would kind of be the time to share that, and whatever it may be, the floor is kind of yours.
Okay, well, first and foremost, thank you again for having me on the show. I just want to take this time to tell people who are not familiar with Leadership Pittsburgh, definitely to Google Leadership Pittsburgh. They have various opportunities for individuals such as yourself that are very talented to look into some of the programs that they have, upcoming courses. I was just recently accepted into the Community Leadership course for veterans, and I could tell you that the network, once again, is phenomenal. And the people that I am aligned with is truly helping me to greater myself. So I tell people to do that. I also would tell people to align themselves with individuals that can help strengthen them spiritually. Mm-hmm. So I would recommend individuals to reach out to Reverend Cornell Jones with Iron Cross Community Ministries. And I would also tell people, if you are a veteran or if you have a heart to serve and you want to get involved in your community, to definitely reach out to myself with Hammond's Initiative, and we would definitely love to have you, because there's so many things going on in our community that we could truly be impactful if we come together.
Awesome. And where would the best place be to connect them with you? Is that on like Facebook, website, or where would that be?
I always tell people, call me directly. Definitely they could go on Facebook. I'm under Leonard Hammonds II. I would tell people to give me a call, and that number is 412-452-7385, because I want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, right now there are so many things going on, and it's very important for us to have an idea of what's going on in our communities. One of the biggest things in the military is intelligence. You want to know what's going on so you're able to strategize and move effectively.
Absolutely. And then as we get wrapping up now, one of the things that we don't want to happen when people watch this is just to feel inspired and just motivated and have all this great information, and they take it and they don't use it. So what's a 24-hour challenge that you would lay down and present to the audience that they can actually apply within the next 24 hours and that actually get them moving in the right direction?
Okay. I want to look at the camera with this one.
Yeah.
The challenge that I have for you, first and foremost, over the next 24 hours, is I want you to invest in yourself by identifying what is your purpose. Because once you identify your purpose, that is something that you can immerse yourself in, and you can begin to walk in your purpose. Because when you walk in your purpose, not only do you change your life, but you change the life of countless others.
Awesome. Hey, man. Well, we definitely appreciate you for being on the show. I am looking forward to all the things that you're doing in the future. Definitely can't wait till that book drops. Whenever the pre-order comes out, I'll be on there.
I got you, for sure.
All right, cool. And we'll definitely be keeping track. We can definitely even do like a second episode, because you got a lot of things happening. And
I feel like a
follow-up episode would be awesome to have. So definitely appreciate you for being on. So now that we know what Leonard does with his 24 hours, we want to know what you do with your 24 hours. Definitely accept that challenge. Comment down below. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and we will see you on the next episode.